What's up, people out there in internet land? Welcome to our full Kamigawa Neon Dynasty limited set review. I'm Ethan, aka Lord Tupperware. I'm joined by, in my opinion, the best card evaluator in the biz, Mr. Alex Nikolic, aka Quarter Calls from the Limited Level Up podcast. Alex, how you doing, bud?
Oh, I am doing just fantastic, Ethan. We've got a very exciting and wordy set ahead of
Yeah.
us, but I'm thrilled. I think this set looks like a lot of fun. I was mentioning earlier in the week that this set is designed by Dave Humphreys over at WotC, who has designed such limited bangers such as Ikoria, War of the Spark, and Call of Time. So the man knows how to design a good limited set, and I'm excited to see what he's brung to us this time.
Yeah, and Hour of Devastation, which I was like, oh, so those are
Oh
like
wow.
four of the six best sets, or been in my favorite sets since we started doing the podcast. So yeah, very excited. And I was saying before, like I said this on the podcast last week, that I don't usually get excited for sets in anticipation of playing them that much, but this really does. Like, there's just tons of modality. It looks like a real limited banger. Okay, so if you've never tuned into these before, here's what's going to happen. We're going to be doing these in a few parts on YouTube, and then if you're, listening to this on the Limited Level Ups podcast feed, this is also going to be, a lengthy thing. Who knows, 6-7 hours? Just strap in. But we're doing every single card. We'll be starting with multicolored artifacts, lands, and then going in order of Wooburg. We'll be doing cards sorted by rarity among those categories, and then within those categories and rarity, sorting them by mana value, except for these gold cards because there's not that many of them. And we'll be using the limited resources A through F grading scale, as everybody is accustomed to. Let's just kick things right off with our signpost uncommons here. Asari Captain is 3 red-white for a 4/3 human samurai with haste. And it says, whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each samurai or warrior you control.
Yeah, so this is the Red White's got this warrior samurai slash pseudo exalted theme. This we're gonna see this in a lot of the red and white cards, and this is a theme that I think I'm a little more excited for than most people. Not just because it's Boros, and that's kind of my thing sometimes, but the idea of my one creature is attacking. I think scares some people sometimes because Red White wants to attack with everything a lot of the time, right? But I think the idea here is, well, the board is stalled out a little bit, maybe not like gigantically stalled out, but man, I don't have that many profitable attacks. So I send the one thing, it gets all the boosts, and then they have to deal with that. They deal with that. I send my other thing, gets all the boosts, right? So you're just like this inexorable force of samurais that keeps piling on abilities, all your other samurais. And I think that's how it's going to play out. And this card, does of course play into that. It's an expensive kind of piece of that puzzle, but I think this plays into it pretty well. Pushes a lot of damage.
Yeah, I'm not skeptical as much as I think maybe the community at large is of this theme in general. We haven't seen Exalted in a long time, but this has, Exalted flavors, or, harkens to Exalted in a little bit, which was a mechanic that whenever a creature attacks, if it attacked alone, it got +1/+1 for each instance of Exalted you had. And so, if you had 3 creatures with Exalted, attacks alone, you get +3/+3. That's pretty darn strong. Right. So that as a theme for Boros, I am excited about. I think that's a cool twist on, an aggressive strategy that Boros is often accustomed to being. This card specifically, I am a little dubious of. 5 mana for 4/3, but haste, but it gets +1/+0, so it doesn't boost toughness. This, having haste implies that this wants to attack and come down, but it's just going to trade down so often that Asari Captain is not really that exciting to me. I don't know. I assume you'll play it in red-white, but I wonder if there are just even better 5-drops, at common floating around the set.
Yeah, I think the 5-drop problem certainly is there for me, but I'm just imagining, this thing comes down, it attacks, it gets lifelink and taps something and pushes a ton of damage. Imagine, I'm not sure if there's any flying samurai or warriors. I guess we'll get to that. But if there are, that pushes a ton of damage, or any ways to give your warriors or samurai flying. It's costed this way because its damage output is just massive in a lot of the spots. So I'm going to start it optimistically at a B-, but I do recognize it has that 5-drop issue.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with a C for this.
Yep.
I don't think this is going to be particularly important to this kind of strategy if it's, worthwhile.
Yeah, totally fair. And, just as a forward here, we are going through all these multicolored uncommons, the signpost uncommons, and it's a great opportunity. We often take a little bit longer on each of these signpost uncommons just to talk about the themes a little bit, which is great. I think it's really nice that we get to be able to do that with like we are going to with our next card here, Colossal Sky Turtle. So Colossal Sky Turtle is a 7-mana 6/5 flyer with Ward 2. It's 4 GG blue, so Simic, a little bit tough to cast. It's got Channel, which is our first instance of the channel. It says 2 and a green, discard Colossal Turtle, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. It also has another channel ability, 1 in a blue, discard Colossal Sky Turtle, return target creature to its owner's hand. So channel basically just says, hey, this card's in your hand. You can pay a cost, discard it. You get kind of a little spell effect, essentially. This, as a package, 7 mana, 6/5, Flying War for Colossal Sky Turtle with some abilities. Where are you at on this?
I think this card's great. I mean, I don't know the last time we have a name for cards with 2 modes. This is split cards. This is like this is a trip card. Like this has 3 different abilities. When it's in your opening hand, that means you're often going to be using the bounce ability. When you draw it in the late game, maybe you have something better to get back, like a removal spell. Yeah, this is basically a charm, right? And or if it's a late game spell, you can decide, hey, actually, I just want the 7 mana 6/5 flyer. Like all of these modes, not even all of these modes. I mean, 2 mana for bounce, 3 mana for regrowth. We're sort of accustomed to those effects at this point. 7 mana for 6/5 flying ward 2. That's maybe a little overcosted, but I'll pay a bit of a premium for this kind of modality. I think this card is great.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so indicative of our playstyles that I'm a little bit lower on this card. I think, while it does a lot of things, a lot of modality, like you said, I think it doesn't do any of them all that well. I don't think I'm that excited about either of these modes here. And 7 mana for a 6/5 flyer, like it's gonna end the game. But so is any expensive thing. I really want my expensive things to stabilize. Gain some life, have an ETB, and this doesn't quite do that. It does, worth noting, can buy back your other channel cards if that's what you want. And by the way, the blue-green archetype is ramp / channel cards. That's kind of what its thing. So this does fit in there. But I think as a card, I'm not all that excited about this one. Similar to the things you were saying about the red-white uncommon, I think, it's not particularly important, and I don't think it, gives that much to a ramp strategy. It's nice to have a bounce spell, and it's nice to have something to buy back, nice to have a big thing. I don't think it's that much better than your the next best thing, and I'm not actually that certain you're going to be that happy casting the channel modes.
Yeah, I mean, that seems a little like you're underrating it, but we have no idea. So I think it sounds like we're probably going to be swapping grades here. I'm going to go B- here.
Yeah, I'm going to give this one just a C, I think.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Enthusiastic Mechanaut, blue-red for a 2/2 artifact creature, Goblin Artificer. It has flying, and it says artifact spells you artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
Sweet. Yeah, this one I think, we're probably both on board with this one. Cheap, it's synergistic, its body is great, just 2/2 flyer. Can't go wrong with that. Blue-red is a, it's kind of pegged as the blue-red artifact ETB deck. I'm not sure how many, how much the ETB stuff is actually going to come into play, but you're dealing a lot with artifacts, cards that care about artifacts. Worth noting, Kamigawa is a set with more artifacts than usual. It's kind of like a Kaladesh or, a Mirrored Incel set where that is one of the main themes. So it's not just going to reduce the cost of 5 cards in the set. There are a hefty number of artifacts, I would say. So yeah, I mean, great effect. We've seen this effect before, sort of in Herald of Kozilek, way back from what is it? Battle for Zendikar. It was a 2/4 instead of a 2/2 flyer though, okay, and that card was really good. And this card does very, very similar things. So I like this card. It's cheap. I'm gonna give a B to Enthusiastic Mechanaut.
Yeah, I'm gonna go B-. I think this card is great.
Sweet.
Next up, what do we have?
Got Gloom Shriekers. This is 1 black-green for a 2/1 enchantment creature, Cat Beast with Menace. It says when Gloom Shrieker enters the battlefield, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If Gloom Shrieker would die, exile it instead. So a lot of stuff going on with this card, to talk about. Number 1, the return of enchantment creatures. Just like there is a lot of artifacts in the set, there's also a lot of enchantments in the set, including enchantment creatures. Kamigawa has got this theme of past versus present, and the way that they represent that is the past. The tradition is the enchantment creatures, and the future, the futuristic technology is all the artifacts. So you got those kind of fighting themes. This card, it's kind of like a joke at this point. It's like, oh, it's black green, like you use that on the podcast this week, black green stuff in the gray recursion. It's like, what is this really doing? It is a powerful card though, right? Just like kind of Eternal Witnessy, 3 mana, 2/1, buy something back. Like, I think what you see a lot of the time when a theme is not so strong in a set, they really juice up the uncommon, the golden common, to be like, all right, here's some incentive to play with the theme or this color combination, even if the theme isn't that strong. That being said, we're gonna get to this in a second, but this card plays particularly well with ninjas, right? Because it's got Menace, it's evasive, and it's got an enter the battlefield effect, which is something else you really want with your ninja cards. So, yeah, I don't know how much this really plays into the whole like recursion theme. I don't think there's actually a whole bunch of that going on, but it's a powerful card at its baseline.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll see this splashed more. Like, this doesn't make me super excited for black green specifically, and part of the reason is because it is it's a cheap effect with this Gravedigger, but you don't actually want to play this on turn 3 because it's very unlikely that something will be in your graveyard to get back on turn 3, or something worth getting back is going to be there on turn 3 to get back. And so certainly, yes, you can double spell with it later on in the game, and that's fine, but at that point, a 3 mana 2/1 Menace is most likely going to be outclassed in the game. And I hear the thing about the ninjutsu thing with, this maybe goes unblocked because it has Menace, and then you can rebuy it. That feels a little like best case scenario to me, and I don't think that's going to come up too often, but maybe it does. I don't know. I'm not super excited about this card. Maybe I would probably just give it like a C+. Like, feels like, yes, if I'm in black green, great. If I'm in a green based deck that can splash, fine. But this doesn't pull me into any sort of black green deck, I don't think.
Can I also sell you on the fact that there are a lot of cards in the set that pick up enchantments to rebuy?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look. It's funny because I feel like I grade a lot of these cards low, and I will end up playing with them far more than you will.
Yeah,
but like, this is not on face value. This card does not excite me right now, and maybe I'm underrating the 2/1 Menace body. But I think there's just a little bit of awkwardness in terms of what this card does as an ETB, as a 3-drop that you don't really actually want to play on 3.
I think there's a lot going on in the set that really supports this card. Now, I'm very, it may turn out that green-black is just terrible and you don't want to touch this card. Mm-hmm. But I'm high on this card in general. I'm actually going to give this in a B+. And that could come down if this, like I said, black-green just absolutely isn't something you want to do. But I think there's a lot going on with this card. So, yeah, Channel is another reason. You're discarding things early on turn 2 even sometimes, buying them back. So,
well, you're not, because you're not playing the blue-green signpost.
So of course not.
You can't be playing Channel cards if you don't like Channel,
Exactly. So I'll end on B+ for Groomshrieker, but we'll see where that one ends.
All right, next one we got Invigorating Hot Spring. This is 1 red-green for an enchantment. It enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. It says modified creatures you control have haste. So modified creatures are creatures that are equipped if they have auras on them that you control, or if they have counters on them at all. So any kind of counters, +1/+1, -1/-1, or, keyword counters as well. And then it has the text, remove a +1/+1 counter from Invigorating Hot Spring, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, activate only as a sorcery and only once each turn.
Yeah, it's Fires of Kamigawa, right?
That's the joke.
That's the joke, yeah. So this is Green-Red's theme, modified. It wants to put auras, equipment, counters on its creatures, make them very big, make them into big beaters. And if that's what you're looking to do, this card seems real nice. Now, got some Rhythm of the Wild vibes, which was a wildly overrated card from RNA, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And I don't know how much that matters. The thing is, it sounds very enticing to be like, oh wow, it's a lot of damage, it's a lot of haste. But like, you play a creature on 2, you play this on 3, maybe you buff that creature, which is good, and then you're taking turn 3 off to play this, which is you could be playing a creature. Where the breakpoints are, how much that you feel that mattering, or how much you feel, oh wow, my 4-drop getting haste, makes up for the fact that I tricked my turn 3 off. Remains to be seen. It's got a lot of power. I could see this, definitely flopping if the format, just like breaks in a way where the early turns you really, really have to be impacting the board. But it's a lot of power that has potential, but I could see breaking either way.
Do you have a sense of how easy it is to support the modified theme, because and granted, I haven't really looked at a lot of the commons that came out this morning, so I'm curious your thoughts. But up until today, I was like excited about some of the payoffs we had seen for modified, but a little worried that you could get there with the support. And so this card seems like, well, this is a way to this is a one-shot way to potentially modify all of your creatures over a few turns, and that could be quite powerful, but I don't know if that's actually what you want to do.
No, yeah, that's a great point. I think it's pretty easy to modify your creatures, actually.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of counters running around. We've got a whole mechanic reconfigure that is supporting this. There's a good number of modifying auras, and to your point, this is also not just baseline what this card is doing for your creatures on board. It's also triggering all your modified matters things where this, modified creatures get, +1/+1, or modified creatures gain trample or whatever it is, right? So this not only gains, puts a counter on a creature, it'll give that creature other abilities too. So the more I talk about this, the more I'm kind of into it. I think I'm willing to start at a B for Invigorating Hot Spring. Yeah,
I'm gonna go B-. This does feel like a pull into this archetype to me.
Yeah,
I know people sort of do the A through F scale a little differently, but that's my big thing, is that difference between C+ and B- is like, what does this make me want to? If I see this, if I start blue card, and then see this pick 4, I think I might go, well, if this is open, I'm gonna do this, So
totally.
I think this is pretty good. All right, what's next?
All right, we got Jukai Naturalist. I feel bad reading this card from you, Ethan. This is your card.
Yeah.
This is.
It doesn't say draw a card on it, so
that's true.
It's not a true enchantress.
Yeah. It's a green white 2 mana for a 2/2 enchantment creature human monk. It's got lifelink, and it says enchantment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So it's kind of the parallel to the red blue flying creature that makes artifacts cheaper. So we've got a 2/2 lifelink enchantment creature for 2. On its baseline, we've come to learn in the past year or so that the 2 mana 2/2 lifelink creature tends to overperform. Just the fact that when you trade, getting that incidental life is important. When your opponent doesn't have a 2-drop, getting, running away, starting the game at 24 or whatever is important. And especially, we saw this in Call Time, in the set with a lot of enhancements, which the set has a lot of enhancements, putting, an aura or a equipment on your lifelinker is really quite good. So the baseline of this card without that extra text, love it. It's also an enchantment creature, which matters. There's a lot of enchantment matters things. And it's got that enchantment spells you cast 1 less to cast. I think it's a little bit less relevant, or a little bit less impactful than the artifact one. Just because with artifacts, there's with enchantments, you're kind of bound by colored mana. With artifacts, not so much. There's a lot of cool double spell, triple spell things you can do with artifacts, costing 1 less. Enchantments, you're kind of bound by how much colored mana you have. It's still very good though, and I think that Jukai Naturalist is quite a good card.
Yeah, I'm in for it too. I think I'll just echo everything that you said. I think I'm less excited about this than I am the blue-red one, especially because all the things you say about a lifelinker wearing auras or equipment. Well, a 2/2 flyer wearing auras and equipment is also great too.
That's true.
So yeah,
but the eternal debate, Ethan, which is better, lifelink flying?
Well, yeah, I guess lifelink races flying pretty well.
Exactly.
No, but I think I like this, and I'd give it a B- to start.
Awesome, B- for Jukai Naturalist. What's up next?
Next up, we have Naomi, Pillar of Order. We had some discussion about this in the Lords of Limited Discord last week. This is 3 white, black for a 4/4 legendary creature, human advisor. When Naomi, Pillar of Order, enters the battlefield or attacks, if you control an artifact and an enchantment, create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance.
I love whenever Magic cards just get normal people names. I think it's really funny.
Yeah.
So this is the Orzhov theme. It's where green white is enchantments and red blue is artifacts. Black white splits the difference, where it wants you to have both of them, and it makes sense. You get a little bit of white, you got a little bit of black in there. So I think that this card, if you get the 2/2 on entry, it's quite good. Just 6 mana worth of stats for 5 mana, across 2 bodies for 5 mana is pretty darn good. I think, one of the things that we always talk about in these set reviews is your 5 mana cards, your 4 mana cards really, really have to do something. And I think the trend we've seen the way that the 5 mana cards kind of buckle the theme of kind of being, not so great for, expensive cards aren't so great, is if that expensive card hasn't entered the battlefield effect. Because then you don't care if it gets removed. You don't care if you have to trade off from combat because you're getting pressured. You got some value. And this does that. And, 2/2 is not, it's nothing to sneeze at. And then if you can get this in, you remove your opponent's creature, you have a combat trick, you pump this up somehow, this starts pumping up more 2/2s. I'm kind of into it. Now, it's got a little bit of a clunk factor, I think. Again, just being 5 mana. But if you can fulfill that requirement, I don't think it's going to be that hard to fulfill that requirement. I'm kind of into Naomi.
Yeah, I'm going to trust R&D for now, as I think should be the default, that like this is supported enough. And the ceiling here is incredibly impressive. Like this is going to be a real grown test. If this comes down as a 4/4, makes a 2/2, and threatens to make another one on attacks, and it's going to have good attacks, because a 5 mana 4/4 is going to have good attacks. Even if you're trading with a 3/3, if they double block, you trade with a 3/3, but like, do they really want to double block? Because then maybe you have a trick and blah, blah, blah. Like, I think, and whatever, if you can pick it up with ninjutsu cards, like, I don't know. I think this card is good. I'm going to start, I'll give it a little bit of a tax because it's expensive, but I'm going to go B-.
Yep, I would be in the exact same spot. B- for Naomi for me.
Okay. Oh, baby.
Oh,
what is the highest you can grade a card, Alex? What's this card here?
Yeah, we got Oni Cult Anvil. So this is black-red for an artifact. You've got whenever one or more artifacts you control leaves the battlefield during your turn, create a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token. This ability triggers only once a turn. All right, well, gotta put some limit on our creativity here.
Fine.
Tap. Sacrifice an artifact. Oni Cult Anvil deals 1 damage to each opponent. You gain 1 life. Oh man, it's like Cat Oven all in one card.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what I wanted when I was seeing the black-red card spoiled of like, okay, please give us a black-red Blood Artist.
Yep.
And this is like better than a black-red Blood Artist. I mean, sure, it's sort of like, because it fuels itself, right? You can just drain someone for 1 every turn because it doesn't say 1 or more artifact, non-token artifacts you control, right? So you can just sack the servo. And yeah, got a little hidden stockpile from Kaladesh vibes to it, and this just seems like this is exactly what they say Red Black wants to do. It doesn't seem difficult to have a sort of sacrificey theme going on. There's stuff that has that makes treasure tokens, and that'll work too. Like, pretty excited about this card.
Yeah, it feels like they really push this card. I think it's aside from the once per turn clause, it's leaves the battlefield, not dies. So works with ninjutsu or works with picking up your own creature somehow. Black red, just to talk about Black red's theme, is artifact sacrifice, which this is like, I mean, as if you couldn't tell, right?
Yeah,
Looking at this card, right? This just seems perfect for the deck. I mean, I think that getting multiples in play of this seems really cool. If you can get that, that's kind of the dream, obviously. But just 1 on its own, that recursive just drain 1.
Well, and the fact that you can use that, you could do so. Sure, you won't make the 1/1, but you can block sack.
Yep.
On your opponent's turn. You don't have to do this tapping sacrifice at sorcery speed with the Anvil. You can just, use that as well, as long as the rest of your deck is supported. And in a pinch, this can sack itself. Yeah,
exactly. If you really have to, but Ethan, you're never doing that. You would never.
I would never.
Yeah, exactly. You can like sack in response to removal because it's not limited to sorcery speed. Yeah, I like this card. What do you want to give this one? I'm gonna go B+.
I'm B+. Yeah.
Sweet. All right, sounds good.
All right.
B+ for Oni Cult Anvil.
Next up is Prodigy's Prototype. This is 1 white blue for a 3/4 artifact vehicle. It has a crew cost of 2. And it says, whenever 1 or more vehicles you control attack, create a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token with this creature crew's vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. So the 1/1 that you make can crew up to a crew 3 cost.
Yeah, pretty sweet. So this, the 1/1, this one comes with its own pilot, right? You can crew this thing right away, right? So it's essentially a...
Wait, how?
Sorry. I thought it was ETB. No, I read this wrong. This is not. You're correct. It cannot do that. But,
come on, Ben. Get it together,
when
Ben.
When this attacks, if it gets in 1 attack, then it can.
Yes.
And often you're gonna have a 2-drop. So that's great. We see this theme. Actually, we see a lot of these vehicle or pilot tokens scattered throughout the set that can crew bigger things. So one of the costs for vehicles, kind of I guess one of the limiting factors is the crew cost. Often we're like, ooh, crew 3, that gets a little bit tough. But if you've got a decent amount of these, like, pilot tokens in your deck, that lessens the cost a bit. I guess we should probably talk about just like vehicle vanilla tests, sort of. As far as
Sure, yeah.
crew goes, because I think often, we don't see crew all that often. What are you happy with as far as crew costs go?
So Crew 2 is about the ceiling. There's a big gap between Crew 2 and Crew 3 or more, because that generally means you need multiple creatures to hop in that vehicle to drive it. Obviously, and still a pretty, like, the gap between Crew 1 and Crew 2 is not that big, just because oftentimes, you're not often having 1-mana creatures in your deck, and when you are, they're like utility creatures, whatever. And I think, play patterns with vehicles, oftentimes you want your vehicle to come down first, because then any creature that you play on subsequent turns effectively have haste, because they can, while that creature may not be able to attack, it can crew your vehicle to then have attacks on the turn it comes into play. So a crew 2 cost I think is fine. 3 mana, 3/4. Vanilla is not that exciting to me. And yeah, sure, it makes a 1/1, and this is the theme of blue-white is vehicles. It's going to be interesting to see what the balance is of creatures to vehicles in those decks, because obviously, like, if you think you want to put vehicles in the same category as any sort of creature augmentation spell, like your equipment or your auras or your combat tricks or counters, like things that need creatures to function, you have to have like a balance in your deck, and have to have obviously enough creatures to warrant the vehicles and have your vehicles not be dead. Now, it's nice that the prototype not only can make the pilot creature from attacking itself, but also if you have other vehicles in play, it just says whenever one or more vehicles you control attack. So you can get those pilots nicely, so that can fuel the other vehicles that you have to be able to attack. But the 3 mana 3/4 is a little, I don't know, unexciting to me, I'll say.
Is it too much of a hot take to call this a Seeker's Chariot? I mean, this does it every time a vehicle attacks. Like, every time this attacks, you get a 1/1, which is less than a 2/2. Might I understand, but that snowballs, and 3/4 is not that easy to block. That early in the game.
I don't know. 2/2s is pretty. They hop right in front here.
Yeah, but again, you get that double block problem where it's like, all right, well, I guess I'm putting in front, and then you get blown out, and then I don't know. I think this really can snowball, and the rate is good. 3 mana for a 3/4 crew 2 vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty high on this one too. I think I'm going to start this one at a B+.
All right, I'll go B. You're excited enough. I'll take your word for it. Seeker's Chariot definitely seems hot takey to me.
We'll see. Next up, we've got Silver Fur Master. A little splinter action. It's a blue-black for a 2/2 rat ninja with ninjutsu. Blue-black for the ninjutsu cost, and it says ninjutsu abilities you activate cost 1 less to activate, and it says other ninja and rogue creatures you control get +1/+1. So, our first instance of ninjutsu, and man, there's a lot to talk about with ninjutsu. It's a really cool mechanic. It's kind of a fiddly mechanic, with the weird. There's a lot of like weird rules timing things, a lot of deck building incentives. But I guess to start off with, when you have ninjutsu cards, you want cheap cards that can get in unblocked, right? Evasive creatures, 1/1 flyers are great. Just any cheap creature that your opponent has a hard time blocking. So you can pick up that cheap creature, put in your bigger creature. Usually sometimes it's a creature with a enter the battlefield effect. Sometimes it's a creature with a deals damage effect. And you can kind of, get your trigger off somehow. This one's a little bit different, actually. It's kind of a ninja lord, where it's not like a hit trigger. It's not an enter the battlefield trigger. It's just it's a surprise. My things are all one bigger, which is cool, in its own right. Where are you at on this card?
I think this is great. I mean, yeah. A little cheap 2 mana 2/2. Folks in chat are asking, why would you ever ninjutsu this in? Well, because if you have other ninja creatures, or rogues, but ninjas I think is the big thing in this set, is that you can sneak this in, and then it will buff your other attacking ninjas, so your opponent gets blown out potentially. So it's not you don't really care about the on hit effect here, because it's just dealing 2 and you return an unblocked creature, but maybe buffing your other creatures is going to be worthwhile. But I think anytime this is in your opener, you're probably just running this out on turn 2. And it's nice that it then makes your other ninjutsu abilities cheaper. Like, every line of text here I think is great. I think this is like a solid B.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things about ninjas is, when you're facing a ninja deck, you often want to block
right.
as much as you can, right? So your opponent doesn't get that, the discounted ninjas and their triggers. And that can, as we've learned in the past from previous cards and previous sets, well, when you have creatures that incentivize your opponents to block, that plays particularly well with combat tricks or any buffs like this card is. So that's another thing, another reason you'd want, the instant speed puts this into play. So yeah, I like this card. It's kind of funny. I wonder if ninjas as a whole is going to be a little bit not weak, but it's such a cool mechanic and such a cool archetype that it's going to be contested, I bet, right? So I think you're not going to get your pick of the ninja deck for very long. All that aside, though, this card, Silver Fur Master, I'm a big fan of. I'm gonna give this one a B.
Nice. All right, that's going to move us on to the rares. Sort of try to group these by color, but there's not really a rhyme or reason. There's not like cycles of stuff. There's just like, there's going to be 3 red-white cards and no red-green cards.
It's really weird.
Enjoy. So first up here we have Iiganjo Uprising. This is red-white X for sorcery. Create X 2/2 white samurai creature tokens with vigilance. They gain menace and haste until end of turn. And each opponent creates X -1 2/2 white samurai creature tokens with vigilance.
Yeah,
Whoa.
very strange card. So let's just say you do X = 1, right?
Okay.
So you get a 2/2 menace haste. They get none, and that creature will get in most likely on that turn. That's not the greatest, but it's a fine, it's a reasonable buyout. The other mode of this essentially is when you can do it for 5 or 4 or something like that, and it's just a big lava axe-esque effect where you're just dealing them a ton of damage that they're not going to be able to block, because they're going to have 3 creatures. You'll also have 3 creatures plus your other creatures, but those yours will get in because they have menace, and whatever, they're not making enough creatures to be able to block all your menace creatures. So it does deal a lot of damage. You really want to end the game when you cast this card, though, because giving your opponent a bunch of material, even though you're on like an even playing field for the most part, where you're making just as many, like just gifting your opponent all those creatures is not ideal, I would say. It is a really, really potent tool for pushing a lot of damage, right, just out of nowhere. But again, you really want to be sure you're ending the game when you cast this.
Right, and I guess like the floor of it just being a 3-mana 2/2 vigilance, I mean that's a bad floor, but it's not a literal F where it's like too dangerous for you to cast this, for a large sum. You're like, all right, well I'll just make myself a 3-mana 2/2. That's not the worst. It is weird. I mean, it's a rare, so whatever, but it is weird that this doesn't have anything to do with the like attack alone theme that red white seems to have. Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know how to evaluate this card. Like the ceiling is obviously win the game. The floor is like D, and so somewhere in the middle is like a C+. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the the downsides of a lava axe is that it's stuck in your opening hand. You can't do anything, and it's dead. And so the buyout is really nice. I guess the cool thing, if I'm going back to my whole defending the samurai theme, is that you're making a bunch of tokens to then send in inexorably one after another. So I was saying you really want to end the game when you cast that. Maybe it doesn't matter all of that much because you can just go, all right, well, you've got some tokens, I've got some tokens, but my tokens get plus X and lifelink, and I tap something and I draw a card or whatever it is. So maybe that's the idea with this card as well.
Yeah. This is I feel like this is a card where when it's cast against me the first time, I'll go, oh, I get it. But right now I don't get it, so I'm just gonna give it like a C+.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna join you with C+. Actually, I think that's where where everything evens out to.
All right.
Next up, we've got our second Boros rare here. We've got Ryu Storm's Edge. This is 2 red-white for a 3/3 legendary creature, human samurai. It's got first strike, and it says when a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, untap it. If it's the first combat phase of the turn, there's an additional combat phase after this phase.
That's very powerful.
Yeah, that's an effect they usually reserve for Mythic a lot of the time.
And you can attack with something alone, get a second combat phase, and then you can attack with a bunch of stuff if you want.
Yep.
Like you don't have to just make that attack alone again.
Or you get the attack alone again, and you get your bonuses again on that one creature, whatever it is, right? So yeah, this is cool. I mean, the base rate of 4 mana 3/3 first strike is not too bad, right?
Dual craft trainer or whatever from
exactly.
mid.
And the cool thing about these samurai cards too is their effects kind of have haste, right? Because they come down, it grants Ryu grants this ability to your 3-drop samurai.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of damage. If that 3-drop samurai has a good attack, or it's some of your other creatures are enabling a good attack because they also grant abilities, that's gonna really snowball.
Yeah.
So I think just baseline, 4 mana 3/3 first strike is not the worst, and actually Dualcraft Trainer is a really good analogy for this, where it's like, it comes down, has kind of a hasty ability, and then can really start to take over the game. What do you like for Ryu here?
I think I like just a solid B here.
Yeah, I think I'm there too. I could even see this being like, the kind of a nightmare card when you're like, oh my god, that thing on turn 4. I hate when my opponent plays this card on turn 4. So I could even see coming up in this card a little bit. But I think I agree. B is a good place to start for Ryu.
We've also got another Boros rare. This is Risona Asari Commander, 1 red-white for a 3/3 human samurai with haste. And when Risona Asari Commander deals combat damage to a player, if it doesn't have an indestructible counter on it, put an indestructible counter on it. And whenever combat damage is dealt to you, remove an indestructible counter from Risona. It's got what's that terrible mana rock from Strixhaven?
Oh, Strixhaven Stadium?
The stadium, yeah. It's like they got the stadium text a little bit with
a little bit like
when
that.
You deal damage, you get the thing. When you get dealt damage, you lose the thing.
Yeah, it comes off. It's a little back and forth. When I first saw this card, I was like, oh, nice. Odric comes back and he gets haste this time. It's a very similar card to Odric from Crimson Vow. But this card's definitely better. So, the idea here, again, playing into my whole story of what the Samurais are doing is this thing gets in, maybe it deals combat damage, hopefully. Gets indestructible, and it won't lose indestructible because your whole other team is staying back to hold the fort down, essentially, right? You're not attacking with everything. If this does get in as a 3 mana 3/3 haste, it's a hulking bugbear, right? That's a decent aggressive creature, and then if it gets that first hit in, or even sometimes it's like you just go completely unblocked. Your opponent doesn't have a creature. They attacked with their 2-drop. You play this on 3. You attack. Or they just have like a 2/3 and they can't profitably block, so they have to let this in, right? So it gets the indestructible counter. Then you have a 3/3 indestructible that gets all the samurai bonuses building up. So yeah, I think while this card does not look all that exciting on face value, I think it actually ends up being pretty good in context.
Yeah. This makes you want to draft red-white, I assume. Very, very few things make you not want to draft red-white.
Well, I'm more into red-white, I think, from the last card that we saw than this one. I think this is just like a good, really solid card more than actually like a huge pull. I would probably put this more in the C+ camp. Maybe B- because, like I said, Hulking Bugbear is just a good aggressive creature, and then the upside is nice. So I think maybe this one gives Arizona deserves a B. Or a C+ maybe.
Yeah, I think C+. This feels like I don't know, a reward, I guess, for being in red white. Because the problem this has is that it needs to be the thing attacking. Right. Risona's got a bit of an ego. It can't support other samurais. It's like, I have to lead the charge a little bit. So I think that makes it, I don't know, slightly less good. I don't know. But who knows? So I think C+ is a good place to start.
It's just just an aside here. It's really funny that for whatever reason they were like, let's put in 3 Boros rares. And you want a Simic rare? No, it's okay. You want a Golgari rare? No, we don't need that in this set.
Yeah. Well, there's a Simic rare. There's
a Simic Mythic.
There's Cameo.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Next up, we've got Grease Fang Okiba Boss. So this is 1 black-white for a 3/4 legendary rat pilot.
It's a 4/3. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, 4/3. My bad. At the beginning of combat on your turn, return target vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of your next end step.
That's pretty. I mean, so this is a 3 mana 4/3 is definitely good body, and then this is some good upside.
It can crew pretty much anything. I'm
pretty definitely crews anything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, if you, I mean, on turn 3, you're unlikely to have had a vehicle get in your graveyard already. But the fact that this threatens to do that later on, and having artifacts in play is something that Black-White is interested in doing. I'm interested in this. I think this feels like a B to me.
Yeah, this is pretty sweet. It's definitely, if you have to play it on 3, you have to play it on 3. But
that seems good.
Yeah, that's fine. That's totally
You're
fine.
saying you have to, that's well. If I play my 4/3 on 3, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a good pilot, right? Just cruise anything, like I was saying. So cruise your early stuff, and then if you can ever turn 6 or whatever, cast this, get something back, attack with that. they either trade, which is a good deal for you because you got a 2-for-1 there, or they get in a bunch of damage. And I mean, you're still getting a 2-for-1 because it goes back to your hand. Yeah, I'm pretty into this card. I think I'd also give it a B. I guess maybe the setup of just like, how many vehicles are in your deck might be a little bit of an issue in black-white because you're not like super hard, pushing towards vehicles, potentially. But I think if you have 3 vehicles in your deck, this thing is gonna be pretty darn good.
Yeah, and we should talk about. We're getting questions about this. The rules. So at the beginning of combat, you get the vehicle back, and then yes, you have a window there before attackers are declared for this to, the turn it comes into play, crew the vehicle that you have brought back. So you do have that time. Anytime before the declare attackers step, you can crew a vehicle on your turn. All right, next up we have Spirit Sister's Call. This is 3 white black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, choose target permanent card in your graveyard. You may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with the chosen card. If you do, return the chosen card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it gains if this permanent would leave the battlefield exile instead of putting it anywhere else.
Okay, so this is a finicky card, but it's a sweet card. There's a lot of interesting things, very, very build around-y, right? You've got to have cards that have ETB effects, or you got to have ways to put artifacts. Well, I mean, any permanent in your graveyard, creatures or artifacts, so that you can like reanimate them for cheap. But if you can like fulfill the requirement of one of those things, right? Things that sacrifice themselves, or ways to sacrifice creatures, or dumping things in the yard, this is a pretty powerful effect. Like you do want to have some amount of things, value being generated. Like I said, I don't know. It seems a little too finicky for me. Like the upside is there. I don't know how reliably you're going to be able to get an actual advantage off of this thing.
Yeah, I think this feels like a potentially sweet build around, but you're going to have to work for this card, and you really have to make sure that work mitigates a 5-mana do nothing enchantment, right? I mean, I guess you get the thing the turn it comes into play because at the beginning of your end step you can swap.
Right.
I think the dream here is, right, you swap your Spirited Companion, your 2-mana 1/1 that drew you a card already. You swap that for something great, some good creature that has found its way to the bin, and maybe this is part of some 5-color channel soup where you're swapping in your 6/5 flyer or your 6/5 trampler that you've channeled, whatever. Like, but that's some like week 7 format shenanigans,
I guess the cool thing to do with this is you've got 2 sagas going, right? Or I guess you can't go infinite with the 2 sagas, but you go like cast a saga, get the effects, it goes to the graveyard, or the creature that it flips into goes to the graveyard, you cast another saga, get an effect, buy back that other one. But that's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
I guess the thing that strikes me about this card is it's a lot of hoops to jump through for a good effect. I just don't know if you're going to need to jump through this many hoops to get a good effect in the game of limited. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start low on this. I'm gonna start like D plus maybe. But I could see this coming up.
Yep.
It's definitely a card that once you understand what pieces go into a good Spirit Sisters Call deck, maybe it goes up a little bit.
Yeah, I'll be interested in this card in terms of like what nonsense exists with it, and I'll give it a build around C, but that's effectively the same as a D or a D plus.
Yeah, that's fair. Next up we've got Kaito Shizuki. This is a Planeswalker. It's a 3-mana Planeswalker, 1 black blue. It's got 3 loyalty, and it has an ability. At the beginning of your end step, if Kaito entered the battlefield this turn, he phases out. So the turn he comes in, he basically can't be attacked on your opponent's turn, right? So that's kind of cool. Got a little bit of protection. The +1 ability is draw a card, then discard a card unless you attack this turn. Not bad. Looting, plus potential card advantage. -2, create a 1/1 blue ninja creature token with this creature can't be blocked. -7, you get an emblem with whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player. Search your library for a blue or black creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle.
So, how good is 3-mana 1/1 can't be blocked, draw a card?
I would say,
because that's the floor of this card, right?
Yeah.
Comes down, you minus it. If it phases out, can't be attacked, it comes back, you attack with an unblockable creature, you get to draw a card.
That's not the worst, right? It's a cantripping 1/1, and a cantripping unblockable 1/1, right? Which
Mhm.
is okay. You'd probably give that like, not a good grade, certainly like a C minus or a D plus or something, but that's the absolute floor of this card, right? I think the play pattern is often just going to be loot with Kaito or draw a card. Imagine this, right? Turn
Wait,
two.
did you just say a 3-mana 1/1 can't be blocked draw card was a D plus?
Yeah, like, I don't know. No, probably higher than that. C minus ish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like, I mean, folks are saying, I mean, it's like whatever. It's got like Cloud Concealer, like a Sky
Sure.
Scanner.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe that's a little bit. Yeah, I'm probably a little bit too low. Just I pulled a grade out of the ether
Yeah.
there.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, this being a set review, perhaps
Oh, of
our
course,
grades
yeah.
are perhaps a little bit
Well,
more important.
we
than,
also go to great imaginary cards apparently. Anyways, yeah, I definitely I struck too low on that one. That's a good baseline.
Yeah.
And if the other baseline for this card, the floor, that's one floor. The other floor is you just keep plussing this, right? You just go draw a
Yeah.
card, you loot a bit. Especially if you've got a 2-drop, you play 2-drop attack, draw a card. That's awesome, right? That's fantastic. And of course, the really nice thing, and one of the problems with cheap planeswalkers like this is that they often die. You have to really be really conservative about them early in the game. Leave back your creatures, because they've got low loyalty. Kaito's got pretty low loyalty too, but he's got kind of a little bit of a boost in loyalty, kind of artificially from his ability, right? And just to be clear, he comes in, you activate an ability. At the end step, he'll go away, and then he comes back on your turn. So your opponent just can't attack him on their turn.
Mhm.
That only happens once, though, right? It's phasing does not trigger, leaves the battlefield, enter the battlefield things. So he'll only actually enter once. This would be a nightmare to play against if you could never attack it, right? But it's only the first turn. So that's really nice buff to it. Ignoring the -7, which we often do, ignore the ultimate. Just the plus and the minus have great synergy together, and both of them are just good abilities. I'm pretty high on this, and of course it's synergistic with
Right. We haven't talked about that. You can just pick up. You have your 1/1 unblockable. It attacks.
Yep.
They can't block it. You pick it up
exactly
in exchange for whatever the common 6-mana 5/5 or whatever. Like,
Yep.
it's just gonna be do some work. So yeah, I would probably give Kaito just a solid B.
I would go a little bit higher than that. I was gonna go A- on Kaito.
That seems. Yeah. I don't. I feel like for an A-, it's gotta like also be good when you're behind, and this is not good when you're behind.
It's not that bad though. Like I think the upside is you play this on turn 3 and you just start to run away with the game.
No, for
and
sure.
The downside is not that bad. Like the floor you were talking about.
But the floor of that card doesn't exist on turn 7 when you're behind, because you just get the 1/1 and you have to chump with it, or you plus and you're just looting. Like, the floor of this card when you're behind is very low. It's lower than Sky Scanner. It's because it doesn't draw you the card until next turn.
This is true, but I also don't think that's like horrendous. Like a lot of when you're that far behind, not many cards in your deck will catch you that far back up. I think digging is pretty nice. Maybe you get 2 loots out of this thing, right? At very least, because it disappears. I'm pretty into this. I would stand by my A-.
Okay, yeah, fine. Next up is Kotose the Silent Spider. 3 blue black for a 4/4 legendary creature, human ninja. When Kotose the Silent Spider enters the battlefield, exile target card other than a basic land card from an opponent's graveyard. Search that player's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards that with the same name as that card and exile them. Then that player shuffles. For as long as you control Kotose, you may play one of the exiled cards and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it.
Like a complicated owlbear, essentially, right? It's like a 5-mana 4/4 draw card, from your opponent's, right? Out of your opponent's grave. So, I mean, this is a fine card, right? It's not like, I don't think it's mind blowing or anything. The joke here is that you can pick it back up with your ninjutsu cards, right? So it is one of the things like we mentioned with ninjutsu cards is they play well with enter the battlefield effects, so you can pick those things up and then recast them again. So I guess that's the idea. A 4/4 seems a little bit small, 5 mana. Like, it's not, maybe not small, but not like, not that impressive. So maybe this just gets blocked reasonably easily. That being said, like, I think this card is, totally fine. I'm not super impressed with it, but it's a good card.
Is this card, so compare this card to the Golgari Uncommon.
Yep.
Tell me why the Golgari Uncommon is better than this.
This one's 5. That one's 2, 3.
Uh-huh.
Is what I would say. Five's just so much more than 3.
Okay.
Two more, in fact, actually.
No, I thank you. That's helpful for me because I couldn't figure that one out.
So what's your thought there? Just that like you like
it's just like this feels very similar to that, but you're like way more excited about that small card than this. You're like, 5 mana 4/4. I mean, I get what you're saying, but they don't seem like in terms of them coming down and doing a thing. Do you want them to like? I don't know. I feel like the timing of them. Maybe I'm just totally underrating the cheapness of the other one, but I don't know. This card seems good to me.
Yeah, I think that this one is, so what do you want to give this? I guess to put this is good. This is the classic one where we're like, oh, I like it, you don't know. Well, you're gonna settle on a B-. Yeah. What do you like giving this one?
Yeah, I'd go B. I think on this.
Yeah. The other thing is to note is that you can kill this. Your opponent can kill this, and then you don't get to cast the card. So it's actually a little bit worse than an Owlbear potentially. Right. So that's a little bit, but I would give this a C+. I think. I think there's enough knocks, just expensive, and they can deny the card. But yeah, fine card overall. So yeah, I'd give C+ myself for Kotose.
Have you considered that it exiles other copies? Yes, but in limited, that's just not coming up very often.
Yeah, it's just even if it comes up, it doesn't matter that much, right? Like, yeah. So not super.
So no, I have not considered that. Is the question? Is the answer?
We put our careful consideration.
Considered and
it's not that important.
Rejected. Yes.
Yeah. Next up, we got yet another blue-black rare here. We've got Satoru Umizawa, so descendant of our good friend Umizawa. 1 blue-black for a 2/4 human ninja. Whenever you activate a ninjutsu ability, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This ability triggers only once each turn, and it says each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu for 4 mana, 2 blue-black.
Whoa.
Yeah. This is sweet.
That's a nightmare to play against.
Yeah.
So your opponent plays this and you're just like, cool, I can never attack. Until this is off the battlefield, I can never attack.
Plus, they're like, little 1 mana 1/1 flyer is an absolute nightmare because it's just gonna start drawing them cards at this point, right? Like, and this finds you more ninjas, right? The fail case is it just finds you a non-ninja creature that you can now ninjutsu in because of the ability. Yeah, this is and just like 3 mana 2/4 blocks well while you're doing the evasive ninja stuff. This card's great.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely awesome. I would go B+ on this.
Yeah. Is this as good as the Jitte potentially? As same lineage here. Exactly. I would go A-. I think this card has
nice.
Balmy feel to me.
Alex throwing out those A- liberally and often.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Satsuki, the Living Lore. It's green-white for a 1/3 legendary creature, human druid. You can tap to put a lore counter on each saga you control, activate only as a sorcery. And when it dies, you choose up to 1. Return target saga or enchantment creature you control to its owner's hand, or return target saga card from your graveyard to your hand.
Okay, so we haven't actually seen a saga just yet, but we've mentioned them in passing. They are in this set in there's a little bit of a twist on them for anybody who hasn't seen them, where what happens with the sagas in this set is they have 2 chapters, sometimes 3, and on the last chapter they flip into a creature. So it's kind of the payoff mode of, okay, my saga does some effects, and then it's like, oh, okay, I got a creature. And this, kind of accelerates you to doing that. And of course, accelerates you to get the further chapters of the saga, which you can double up on triggers, which is pretty sweet. You really, obviously want to have a lot of sagas to make that ability good, but you don't need a lot of sagas in your deck to make this card good in general, because when it's got that death trigger, and you're gonna have a good amount of enchantments in your deck in green white again, that enchantment deck. There's enchantment creatures, right? Which this card calls out specifically. I don't know. I think this card does a lot of really good small little things. It's not like it's not like a in your face like amazing, but it packs a punch for the size of the package it is, I guess.
Yeah. And in green and white, I believe there's 2 common sagas in white, 1 in green, and then each of them have 2 uncommons, I believe.
Yep.
So in green white, I mean, I think you could pack 1, pick 1 this, and I don't know if you need to give it a build around grade because this is sort of built into what green white is trying to do, but I really think, one of the knocks against the sagas as we see them is I think they're slow. And how slow and how detrimental that will be, and how much the chapters leading up to them becoming creatures, can buy you time or whatever, and how relevant they are, that remains to be seen until I think we play with them. But accelerating them is very good. Like getting that creature a full turn sooner is really strong, I think.
I think it's kind of a nightmare when your opponent plays this on 2 and then
Yeah.
plays the Saga on 3. Right?
Right.
Like that's actually really, really quite good. So as we're talking about this card, I'm coming up and up on it. I think it's easy to make, like, within the colors, it's not going to be hard to make this card work, and the ability is really quite good.
And that's all tacked on to like a pretty, I mean, again, who knows? We've seen some sets where 2-mana 1/3s are great, and some sets where 2-mana 1/3s are not great. But if a 2-mana 1/3 is a body that's not embarrassing, then this is also just awesome there. So here's another question that I have for you. Do you know what the seeding of the packs is with the MDFCs? Like, is there a Saga per pack?
Yes, I believe so. I think it's the double face slot, just like we would see in Innistrad.
Okay.
Where I don't think there's any other double face cards in the set. I think
No.
the Sagas are the only one. So we'll see a Saga per pack.
Okay. Sweet.
Potentially more. I'm not sure if there's potentially 2, but my gut says probably just 1.
So do you think you need to give this a build around grade, or you just think green white's happy with this, and then the sky's the limit if you want to, snap up every Saga and get a bunch of fixing, whatever?
I think it would be tough to have a green white deck where this card isn't good.
I think that's true. I think another solid B here.
Yeah, I'd probably go B plus on this one. I think it's got, again, that kind of nightmare potential of playing this early and curving it into a Saga.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up we've got the Heartbreaker, Tamiyo, Completed Sage. So this is a weird one. 2 green Phyrexian blue-green hybrid blue. So that's a bit tricky to parse. But it's 5 mana in total with kind of a Phyrexian mana in there. It's got the ability Completed. This is a Planeswalker, by the way, and it says hybrid green blue Phyrexian can be paid with either green, blue, or 2 life. And if the life was paid, this Planeswalker enters with 2 fewer loyalty counters. It's got 5 loyalty. So basically, you could just pay 2 green, blue, blue, or 2 green, green, blue, or you can pay 4 mana and 2 life. So it's 5 mana or 4 mana and 2 life, which is, nice flexibility. But then Tamiyo comes in with 2 fewer loyalty if you've paid 4 mana and 2 life.
And we haven't even gotten to any abilities yet.
I know, exactly. Just like a wall of text just in the mana cost. Mm-hmm. Essentially, the abilities of this Planeswalker are +1, tap up to 1 target artifact or creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. -X, exile target non-land permanent card with mana value X from your graveyard. Create a token that is a copy of that card. -7, create Tamiyo's Notebook, a legendary colorless artifact token with spells you cast cost 2 less to cast and tap, draw a card.
This card is nuts.
This card's great, yeah. Very similar, actually, to the original Tamiyo, for anybody who's played with that.
That's a great point, yeah.
Yeah, 5-mana blue Tamiyo, where that plus ability is, it looks good, but it's often a little bit better than it looks, right? Just being, I guess, maybe that one can tap down lands, this one can't, but this just being able to lock down a creature forever is pretty impactful. And being 5 loyalty if you cast for 5, or even 3 loyalty when you cast for 4 isn't too bad. You get to lock down, essentially remove a creature from combat. That's just, the plus is a really good ability, even if it doesn't look that impressive on face value. The -X is interesting, right? Just like kind of reanimate a creature or reanimate an artifact or reanimate any permanent, essentially, which is cool. Nice little value ability. And the -7, I was saying before, we don't usually pay too much attention to this, but this ultimates relatively quickly. Like, you go ++ ultimate. Mind you, the ability, the ultimate actually might not be very good because, it's pretty fragile. They can just destroy the artifact token, right? Like, there's a lot of, there's definitely ways to destroy artifacts in the set.
Sure, right. It's not an emblem or something that they can't interact with.
So I think you're mostly going to get value out of the plus ability. And, like, you're going to go, like, ++, get something out of your yard, ++, get something out of your yard. And maybe, hopefully the game's over by then.
The plus and the minus protecting this in different ways and both being powerful. I just like, this card is an A. This card is going to be very, very tough to deal with, I think.
Yep, I like it quite a bit. I would also give it a name.
All right, next up we have Hidetsugu Consumes All. This is 1 black-red for a Saga. Chapter 1, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. Chapter 2, exile all graveyards. And Chapter 3, this is going to be the same text on all the Sagas in this set. Exile the Saga, then return it to the battlefield transformed under your control, and it comes back as Vessel of the All-Consuming. It's a 3/3 enchantment creature ogre shaman with trample. Whenever Vessel of the All-Consuming deals damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever Vessel of the All-Consuming deals damage to a player, if it has dealt 10 or more damage to that player this turn, they lose the game. So I think important to note that the comparison here is to Suspend for these sagas, I think, where you could pay 1 and a green for your 5 mana 3/3 flyer. It would suspend 3. You'd pay 2 mana. It goes into exile for a few turns. Those 3 turns. On the last turn, on your upkeep, you remove the counters. On the last counter is removed, it comes into play and has haste. The sagas do not have haste, except for the red common one that says it does, because you're exiling them and then they're returning to the battlefield transformed. They have entered the battlefield for the first time and so have summoning sickness. So cast the saga. 2 turns later, you can block with the creature. 3 turns later, you can attack with it. Now, that said, these first 2 chapters are not that impactful, Alex.
Oh, I think the first one's really, really great if you're playing Hammer Time against Hammer Time in Modern. That's just gonna get all of their Sentinels and their hammers, but in Limited, not so good.
Hammer Time in Modern. Okay, Boomer. Okay.
Yeah. So I think the value of this card is mostly almost exclusively the backside. So it's like the 3 mana suspend 3/3 trample that gets bigger when it hits.
Which is going to be tough to do turn 6 attacking with your 3/3.
Yeah, you might nab a 1-drop actually. I wouldn't be surprised. But it's mostly that. So I think this card is pretty bad.
Yeah,
like
I think so too.
I wouldn't be surprised if this just ends up being like a D or an F,
Yeah, it's like, I think there are good enough 1-drops in this set that I think this will be definitely a strong sideboard card in best of 3. But I also don't think you're getting mythic rares at a pick for your sideboard.
Sick mythic rare sideboard tech.
Yeah,
right?
so I think D sounds fine to me for.
All right, yeah,
Hidetsugu
it does get rid of
all.
token, worth noting. So again,
Sure. I don't think it's dead. I just think talk about modality as like I'm fine to pay a premium for choices. This doesn't really have choices. It's like these things could line up well. Exiling a graveyard could be relevant.
Yep.
But no.
It's like, should you put this card in your deck? Probably not. Should you devote an early pick to it? Also probably not. So yeah,
right.
that's not something I'm into. This next one, again, these rares just throwing us for a trip with the colors that they're throwing at us here. So Hinata Dawn Crowned is a 1 blue red white creature. It's a Jeskai 4 mana creature here. 4/4 flying trample, legendary creature, Kieran Spirit. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each target. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast for each target. So essentially,
it's Grand Arbiter Augustin, boomers.
Yeah, it's Grand Arbiter. It's a big old flying Grand Arbiter. And yeah, it makes your removal spells cost less, makes your pump spells cost less, makes your opponent's removal spells cost more. The big downside of this card, of course, is that it's Jeskai, and that's an odd thing. Now, mind you, something that we haven't touched on that is very important is the common, or the common slot in this set for lands is replaced by dual lands. Or I think there's dual lands, or it's actually almost exactly the same as Kaldheim, because it's like the 2-color tapped lands or the Shimmer Drift Veil. There's Shimmer Drift Veil style card that comes in. It's kind of like Evolving Wilds. You choose a color. So there's fixing at common in every pack. That is worth noting. Or actually, don't quote me on that. It might not be in every pack, but it might be. I think it might be in like 60% of the packs or something like that.
Right.
So you can pick up dual lands, and that's an important piece of the puzzle. You don't have to put like a Traveler's Amulet style card or like a Mana Rock in your deck to try to cast.
How dare you talk about Traveler's Amulet that way?
I'm not saying
Sir, please.
I'm not saying it's the worst thing to do. I'm just saying I would prefer not to do it. Anyways, having a land is a much less intrusive way of fixing your mana. That being said, you shouldn't go out of your way to try to cast this card, I don't think. If you get this late, you're in blue-red, and you're like, okay, nobody wanted this. I got this like 7th pick. Okay, I'll take it. Maybe for the gems. Maybe it makes my deck. And then, you also get some red-white lands late. It's like, okay, like it's approaching free, and maybe you have some card draw to make the splash a little bit more tenable. The card is good, right? It's quite a good card. 4/4 flying trample for Hinata, and with that ability, really nice.
Here's the question: if this were 1 blue-red, what would you grade it?
1 blue red, I would probably give this card like a B+.
Yeah. So we're not denying this is a good card. It's not like what you're getting for the text and the stats and whatever is a good card. It's not quite bomb status, but just below, like just very efficient. It's going to demand to be answered. But then Alex is talking about this. This really is a huge consideration. We're going to see a handful of these 3-color cards here. This is a big cost, and you're not just jamming 2 planes in your blue-red deck, because that's going to cause you to lose more games than this will win you games.
Yeah, and that's such a important point, Ethan, that, I'm sure a lot of loyal listeners are aware of this, but for those who aren't, I want you to repeat that, Ethan, for the audience here.
Limited mana bases in 2-color decks are bad.
Yeah,
they're really bad. Your 9-8, like I say this all the time, but how many times in your 9-8 deck or your 10-7 split deck have you had mountain 4 black cards?
Yep.
In your opener, and or mountain 1 red card, 3 black cards, and you go, well, I either have to get lucky or I mulligan.
Real bad.
Throw a couple planes in there, and boy howdy, do you have a stew going. Like, it's so bad. So just really keep that in mind. What Alex is talking about of like, I don't want to put air in my deck. I mean, people play green, bad green mana dorks that are 4 mana. We're coming off of, the mid-vow double feature with Dawnheart Rejuvenator as your 4 mana, 2/4 mana fixer to splash your Hanada Dawn Crown. It's like, why don't you just not do that and play some cards that actually matter, and then you don't have to worry about playing this card. So, if this were bomb status, right? If this were 1 blue, red, white for something that just felt like, oh god, like, I untap with this, I win the game. Fine. Yeah, you can go out of your way for that. I still wouldn't recommend jamming 2 planes in your blue-red deck, but the mana cost here is really going to bump it down, I think, to, I don't know, B minus territory, C plus territory, even if we're talking about, like, what Alex is talking about, of like, I've taken some blue cards, I'm going to take, and then I see this card a little late, or I see it in pack 2, and then maybe I go, maybe I could get some lands for it, but you're not going, blue-red, and you open this pack 3, pick 1, you're likely going to take a good common in your colors over this.
Let me put it this way. I draft sets. We both draft sets a lot, Ethan. I would be surprised if we put this card in our deck collectively more than 3 times over the course of the format.
I think that's I think that's very true. And I think all 3 of those will be from me.
Yeah, exactly. Yep,
it's most
exactly.
likely. So I'll go B minus here, C plus. I don't know. Like, giving these cards grades is so weird because it gets so knocked from the mana requirement.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna give it that kind of like a B minus grade, but that's kind of a cop out. I think mostly you're gonna get what you want from the discussion we've had here.
Yep.
And what's up next? We got a very similar card, sort of.
It's Ishin, 2 heavens as 1, red, white, black. For a 3/4 legendary creature, human samurai. If a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So how does this work with all of the attacks alone stuff, Alex?
Oh, it works quite well, doesn't it, Ethan? Got attack Monocon here.
Yeah.
So, like, again, this is a great card. Like, this is a fantastic card. 3 mana, 3/4 that triggers all your attacking things, and I'm sure there's other attacking triggers that we haven't even touched on that we'll see. But especially, and this is even worse actually than the last card in regards to what we were talking about, because splashing in your aggressive decks, even when you have those tap lands, like say you're red white and you pick up a bunch of black white tap lands incidentally, those tap lands are going to be a cost in your aggressive decks. Your aggressive decks can't really afford to stumble, right? They don't want to be waiting around to find their tap land and then play their tap land and then play this, right? It's generally just not worth it. Just play a red or a white card. You're gonna win more from it. It's really cool. It's a really cool card. It's very powerful. I just can't imagine this card making my deck almost ever.
Yep, I have nothing to add. You said it perfectly. Thank you very much. Don't splash your aggro decks, folks.
Yeah, it's hard to call this an F because it is powerful, but I think it's going to end up as in, like, you just shouldn't play this card.
Yeah, I'm just going to put a big question mark in the...
Yep, that's actually great. One thing I actually forgot to mention before we started is I kind of want to do that a little more often, honestly, in these set reviews. Just give it kind of like a question mark or a bookmark. Like, we'll come back to this, essentially. Like, I think
we're not coming back to this. Like, this, we know that this is just, totally. Like, not really worth doing.
No. I just mean for other cards. I think it's important to note the ones that are like, you know what? This could go either way. It's worth keeping your eye out for this one. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of like, a bit of a cop-out to give it just like, let's just, not this one in particular, just any cards, right? Let's give it a C, just like that middle grade. I think it's more helpful to be like, keep your eye out for this one, because it might go either way. Anyways.
All right, hoops worth jumping for 1,000. Alex, what's our last multicolored card here?
This one I might be looking to pick up some dual lands highly and actually build around this one.
Did you really draft Kamigawa Neon Dynasty a bunch if you never cast the Kami War.
Yeah, this one, what do you want to put the over-under on? I think, if it's a Mythic, so we're going to be, seeing it less, but I would assume we collectively play this more than 3 times over the course of the format, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is the Kami War. This is a Mythic Saga. It's 1 Wooburg, so all of the colors, so 6 mana altogether. The first chapter says, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls. Second chapter is, return up to 1 other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, then each opponent discards a card. Then it flips on the third chapter into a 6/6 Okagachi Made Manifest. This is a 6/6 flying trample all colors creature, which is Dragon Spirit. When Okagachi Made Manifest attacks, defending player chooses a non-land permanent in your graveyard, returns that card to your hand. Okagachi Made Manifest gets +X+O until end of turn, where X is the mana value of that card. Okay. So a lot going on.
Just for our listeners at home, it doesn't have to be a permanent card. They just choose a non-land card in your graveyard.
Yeah, sorry, and non-land card. My bad. Yep. So it's kind of Elspeth Conquers Death-y, where it comes in, exiles something, and then the second chapter is kind of like a little bit of incidental value. You bounce something, they have to discard something, and then it flips into this gigantic dragon that draws you cards essentially. The payoff is here for this one. That's the story we're trying to tell, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And this is also just like, I don't know, there's a fun factor here, at least for me, of like seeing this card. And this is probably, if you're only drafting the set 25 times or whatever, you should
only he says
you should not look at this card in packs. Yeah. It's gonna not do the thing for you. But I will definitely be pack 1 pick 1ing this and trying to build around it and support it. And I do think the support is there. And it's I don't know, is it powerful enough to be trying to do 5 colors? Probably not. Probably nothing is in limited, but this is pretty sweet.
Well, I actually think so here I think this brings up an interesting conversation. I love going into deep, interesting conversation tangents on this like 6-hour set review. But just quickly, I think there's definitely a tension between like how fun is the card and how good is the card often for most limited players, and there's that intersection of, you know what, this is fun, but it's also good enough actually. Like I think the dividing line is, can you make this work? And I think you can certainly make this work. It's not like a completely like untenable achievement that you're like, well, once in a million years. No, if you pick this card, you devote picks to fixing, maybe green has to be a little open to pick up some green fixing, but you could make this work. And I think that's the distinction that is important to make this for this card.
Yeah. So I don't know, build around question mark. Like,
yeah, I would give it a build around A- probably.
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me. All right, that's part 1. That's multicolored cards.